Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Jeff Israel, editor of Yellowjackets. And boy, oh boy, do you get some incredible episodes to dive into. We're going to talk about two that have aired and then maybe just a little tease about that season finale, which hasn't aired yet. So we're going to play it safe there. But don't worry, we're going to dig into these two. The first one I want to talk about, episode 2, Edible Complex. The teenage Yellowjackets eat Jackie. What went through your mind as that footage started coming in?
This is crazy. It was interesting because I had read what the medieval feast was going to look like, but they blew me away when I first saw the footage because it was just so well done and all the dress. And you know, I think everything came in at once. And then I just started looking through it and I was like, these actors are so committed. This is amazing. They just dove in, and I feel like you only get that from like a young cast who are like, we don't care. We'll do
Well, I
what
mean,
we'll
it's
do.
savage. There's just blood all over their face.
Yeah, and they all really got into it, and we ended up using just about because there's so many quick shots in it. We used just about everything they did in it, and while I was putting it together, I noticed some parallels. Like when medieval Misty would bite into an apple, and then I would cut to a shot of 90s Misty biting into flesh to start teasing it. And the intercutting worked really well. But what really got it going was the Radiohead song. Because I typically go through and pull all my favorite selects. And then I stop and I say, I can't really cut anymore. I need a song or score to point me in the right direction. And with Climbing Up the Walls by Radiohead, it did just the right amount of escalating at the right time and the build. So we started out with them slowly walking out and they see the body and Shauna sits down and we put like a sound effect of a baby gurgle
Wow.
on her.
Does the song sort of help you pace it? Is that what that helps with?
Yeah, because because we tried a bunch of songs and that one built to the scream at the end, the the scream of terror that Tom York does at the end of that song. That's like Coach Ben rejecting this madness. Um, but the song starts out kind of slow, almost like Penderecki score or something, because Johnny Greenwood, and it builds. And and Jonathan Lisco wrote the script that way to accelerate the pace as we go. And we never wanted to like hang on the shots of the cannibalism to glamorize it or sensationalize it. We just wanted to show it. And by the intercutting to the medieval fantasy is like them going into this safe space so they can do this. But that song works so well because it builds and builds, and then it stops, the door shuts, and the audience is like, what was that? So, and yeah, and I think a lot of people probably didn't expect that payoff because some people had predicted, well, Shauna ate her ear in the previous episode, so they're probably going to eat her in the next one. But then you see them burning her body, and the viewer's like, oh, I guess this is not going to happen. So during the Natalie Travis scene when they're together, after Natalie tells Travis that Hobby's disappeared, we suddenly cut outside and it's like a POV of a wind, and we see the snow fall onto the pier, creating like barbecue Jackie, basically.
Wow.
And then
It was
they wake up to
difficult.
this. They wake up to the smell, and we described it like, let's say you're starving and you wake up and you smell bacon. So they're all like drawn towards it. But it works so beautifully well. And that song is Climbing Up the Walls and is about when Tom York worked in a mental hospital in London. And it's just about anxiety. And often when we start auditioning My assistant Genevieve Butler suggested that one. We started with Radiohead. I believe Nora Felder, our music supervisor, who's amazing, suggested Radiohead, a different Radiohead. And I thought, oh, I think this is the right path. Because so much of Radiohead's music sounds like film score. And that's why Johnny Greenwood is such an amazing composer. So we just went, and often on Yellowjackets, someone pitches something, we just go down that rabbit hole and keep going and exploring. And we cut that version. And then we asked Nora, can we beat this? Because we always try, like, can we get something better than this? And that was just like the winner. And it really made the scene.
And I spoke with Sophie Nélisse, and she said they were all just gagging throughout that whole scene. Was there a lot that you had to cut, or are they holding it together long enough for the director to
they totally held it together. I was surprised. Their devotion to eating endless amounts of jackfruit and rice paper. Because I had to ask, what is this made of? We called it Jackie fruit. I think someone was calling it Jackie snacks. Oh, Samantha Hanratty said that last week. I hadn't heard that one. That's pretty.
Had to bring some levity to the set.
Yeah, and they just all like, they were so good in that scene, and they truly ate it like they were starving, and that made it convincing.
What's the key to keeping like tension building in a series like this? And like from an editor's perspective, what do you have to do to keep the viewers sort of like on the edge of their seat?
I just follow what's true to the character, because we're not really a jump scare traditional horror show. The horror we show is like the darkness inside people and what they're capable of. So the pacing can vary because we play lots of styles on this show. Sometimes it could be fast cutting, like Tysa in the coffee montage earlier in episode 2, which is really great when she's trying to stay awake and she's just pounding Nespressos. And then sometimes the pacing of, like last season when Shauna and Jeff visit Jackie's parents. And the first version I cut of that was a little bit faster and snappier. And Bart, one of our showrunners, gave me the note, said, oh, it should be more like Todd Solondz. I'm like, oh, you want cringe comedy. So you want to open up all these moments. And when you go back and revisit that scene, knowing that Shauna ate Jackie, it's like a totally different experience. Yeah. And her mom's feeding her like tuna casserole or something. And it's just such a strange scene. And then she goes upstairs and speaks to Jackie. Like after you see the end of season 2, you can go back and rewatch a lot of things, and especially the adult sequences, and you get a different understanding of it because you learn more about what really happened out there.
Right. And in present day, there are a lot of great dialogue scenes. There's also some action. We see Tysa and Simone get in that car accident at the end, and that's sort of shocking. It comes out of nowhere. Do you have a different approach when you're editing the scenes of the adults in present day, or do you not really for you?
I mean, I've cut a lot of teen shows, and when the teens are talking, they talk fast and they overlap and interrupt each other. And because of their situation, I might subconsciously cut them a little faster. And the adults probably a little more methodical, and they choose their words a little more carefully, as the teens probably react with their gut, literally. And but yeah, it depends. It's just a different feeling of who's in the scene, especially if Christina Ricci is playing Misty. Those are always interesting because she has her own rhythm. So
when you're dealing in 2 timelines, it's almost like 2 shows in one in many ways. So how do you keep the pacing the same, or have the timelines weaving, because they go back and forth throughout the show?
Yes,
but we're not losing focus. Like it's easy to follow, and that's a credit to your editing. Like how do you keep us on pace, or what's the most challenging part about that?
We often, because we always want things escalating, towards the end, and we do want to track all the characters. And sometimes when we put things together, we rebalance a little bit and we move scenes around because you realize, oh, it's been 10 minutes since we were with Shauna in this scene. My favorite example, well, I have two examples in the show of my favorite intercutting where we changed it in the edit. And in season 1, episode 3, we have 3 different timelines going. We have young Tysa visiting her grandmother, 8-year-old Tysa. I believe she's 8. And then we have teen Tysa discovering the skeleton in the attic. And we have adult Tysa going downstairs and seeing that Sammy has destroyed this doll. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, this could be kind of an interesting triple cut. So I cut it to where it's like gradually escalating. And I cut from feet to feet because they had shots of both of their feet moving. And it all builds into like a triple jump scare where we see 8-year-old Tysa seeing her grandmother. She lifts her eyelids and sees there's these white discs on her eyelids, which I think they really do. And then adult Tysa discovers Sammy's doll all destroyed and is wondering what is going on. It's her doing that. And then teen Tysa discovers the skeleton in the attic. And all of that built really well because they played a little more separately, but coming together, it works really well. And then in my favorite one in season 2, episode 6, the interrogation, when the cops are interrogating Callie and Shauna, those were originally 2 separate scenes. I'm like, these have to be intercut together.
I love that.
To show how Callie's just becoming more like Shauna every day. And for Callie, she's fascinating. She's spending time out in the woods. She's just becoming more like her mom through, I guess, genetics and what her environment. So that's a really exciting story that's been developing this season in Yellowjackets.
And that episode 6, Qui, is also when teen Shauna gives birth. So more trauma. Talk us through your work in that scene, piecing together Shauna's trauma, not only what she's going through, but then also going and deciding who you're going to show. Because all these other Yellowjackets are watching. I mean, so you're going back and forth between them helping deliver this baby and Shauna actually having it.
I think one of the first things we decided was Shauna's in the middle of the room having this baby, but everyone's a little bit frozen in place because some of them don't quite know what their role should be. And some step up, but most are just watching. And we tried not to cut away too much to everyone in the room because we wanted to focus on Shauna, and Sophie's performance is so amazing. And you just want to stay on her. So usually I would just kind of stay with who's in the room and then track everyone moving around when I ask Coach for help, and then Akila gets involved. It all came together really well. Considering it's almost like a bottle episode where you're just shooting in this one room. And Liz Garbus just had such a sensitive touch when she directed that episode. She handled it so well. And everything I've read is just how amazing the actors bonded together, and we're making sure everyone was comfortable. This is a pretty tight group.
Yeah.
That really carries over into my work because it's just an easier space to get into when they're all like comfortable.
What is it like for you as an editor on a TV series like this, when you have different directors on different episodes? Does that impact your work at all? I mean, do you get a different vibe with different directors?
It does. I was fortunate. I worked with some really great directors this season. Ben Seminoff, who did episode 2, and Liz Garbus did episode 6, and Karin Kasama directed the finale, 9. And so that was really interesting. And without spoiling anything in the finale, there's things in it that will remind you of the pilot.
Okay.
Some of the style. And But because 2, 6, and 9 are so different, 6 being interrogation and Shauna's baby, and then those horror moments at the end. But you know, everything kind of, we keep it all like in the same world. We make sure that everyone on set makes sure everything's consistent in the vision.
How much leeway are you given as an editor in terms of what stays and what goes?
Well, often Jonathan, Ashley, and Bart are very collaborative. And if we have ideas, they say go for it. Because obviously it's a show that has a lot of scenes in it. So I think Cinema's 50 scenes. And we just want to tell the best story in the most concise way. I think it's just honoring the vision of the show the most.
And when you're working with actors that are so great, I was curious about this because I spoke with Warren Cole, and he was talking about how Melanie Linsky doesn't really rehearse. She just goes with whatever she's feeling that day. And it made me curious about your job. And I'm wondering, is it easier for you because are they nailing something in one take and then stopping it? Or is it harder? And are you getting like 30 takes of all these actors doing brilliant things and you have to figure out, okay, what one am I going to use now?
We don't get 30 takes of things. Well, especially the teens, because there's so many characters in a scene. To cover everyone, you have to have a fairly disciplined vision and be efficient. Especially sometimes we're dealing with weather, like real weather, not the snow that we are adding to the scene. I think last year, when they all go to the lake, they start shooting in May season 1, but when they go to the lake, they couldn't shoot that till August because the water was too cold.
Okay.
And they didn't want all of them. So sometimes that can get a little crazy.
And when do you know when you have it right? Like, are you pretty good at letting things go, or are you someone that sort of tortures yourselves for hours over little particular things?
I like my first version. I usually put things. I read this. Obviously, I read the script. We have all the tone notes. That's incredibly helpful just to see what everyone's thinking. And sometimes in the tone meeting, Ashley and Bart or Jonathan will reveal things that I don't know yet because that script hasn't even come out. So that's very helpful, especially when you're cutting the adults. And then I usually put together the sequence. And what I do a lot of editing once I build the whole show because I see how it all flows. And then I go in, and because we shoot out of order, often motivations of characters, some things won't be totally clear on my first pass.
Okay.
Because I haven't cut the scene that happened 3 scenes ago.
And the season finale is coming up. You edited that. We can't give any spoilers on that, but do you think fans will be happy? Does it stand up with the rest of the season?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's pretty insane. I know I've read some actors have been talking about it. It's pretty nuts. It's gonna be amazing. Everyone's going, yeah, get your bourbon ready, maybe your tissues. Although I said that after episode 6 as well. Well, I like the New York Times said, "Oh, episode 7. This is a nice break from the trauma party of episode 6." But yeah, 9's amazing. I think it's incredible.
Well, we can't wait. And are you coming back for season 3? Because that's been confirmed as well. So
I plan to.
I'm sure they're going to have you back. Jeff, congratulations on some really incredible work on Yellowjackets this season. We'll be crossing our fingers for you when Emmy nominations come out. And thanks for sitting down and chatting with Gold Derby today.
Yeah, thank you so much.